Welcome to FearBound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. In the fall of 2016, a part-time night stalker named Brian Alvarez was working a routine graveyard shift at a 24-hour Walmart just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was past 2:00 a.m. The store was quiet. The usual late-night stragglers had come and gone, a couple looking for baby formula, a trucker grabbing snacks, a teenager loitering in electronics. But by this hour, the place was nearly empty. Brian was restocking paper towels in aisle 8, just between cleaning supplies and pet food, when he heard the soft squeak of wheels behind him. Thinking it was a customer, he moved aside and said, "Go ahead, I'll get out of your way." No one responded. He turned. The aisle was empty. No carts, no footsteps, just shelves and fluorescent lights humming overhead. He shook it off. Walmart is weird at night. But then a few minutes later, he noticed something strange. Down the aisle, at the very end, just beyond the pet litter display, stood a woman. She wasn't moving. She was facing the shelf completely still, dressed in a pale blue hospital gown, barefoot. Brian blinked, looked away, looked back. She was gone. He walked toward the spot cautiously, thinking maybe it was a customer in need or someone from the nearby medical center that had wandered off. Nothing, but a faint smell lingered, antiseptic and something else, like wet cement. He reported it to security. They brushed it off. Weirdos show up all the time, man. An hour later, Brian was in the back loading bay when the power flickered. Just for a second, but enough to knock out the lights in aisle 8. The monitors in the security room went black, then returned. Except for one. The feed for camera 8, focused directly on the aisle, was showing static. Then a frame came into view. It showed the woman again. Still, back turned, arms at her sides. Only this time, she was closer to the camera. Security thought it was a prank. They rebooted the system, the footage vanished. But that's when it started happening more often. Over the next few weeks, Brian and others reported seeing the woman, always in aisle 8, always facing away. She never moved, never made a sound. But things would happen. Boxes of detergent falling without explanation. A customer passing out cold in the middle of the aisle. A child screaming for his mother, claiming the pale lady touched me. One night, Brian decided to face it. He brought his phone, went to aisle 8 at exactly 2:33 a.m., the time he saw her the first night. He stood where she always appeared, waited. Nothing. Then his phone buzzed. A notification, one new video saved to gallery. He hadn't recorded anything. When he opened it, the screen showed himself, standing in aisle 8. Behind him, the woman. Her face was blurry and her mouth was open, too wide. Unnatural, like it had been torn there. He dropped the phone and ran. He quit the next morning. Corporate reviewed the incident, found nothing suspicious, and said the footage had been corrupted, just like every other camera glitch they'd logged in that store. But employees still talk about her. They say if you're ever in that Walmart late enough, and the lights flicker in aisle 8, turn around and leave, because she's still there, waiting to be seen. The strangest thing about the Walmart in Hickory, North Carolina wasn't the customers. It was the time card for an employee who didn't exist. Back in 2013, during an overnight audit of clock-in records, Assistant Manager Kendra Liu was reviewing the digital punch-in system. It was part of a regional check ordered by corporate after reports of labor time theft. Kendra expected a few minor discrepancies. What she didn't expect was a name she didn't recognize. Dennis R. According to the records, Dennis R. had been clocking in every night at 3:17 a.m., staying for roughly 11 minutes, and then clocking out. Every single day. No one on the staff list matched the name. No HR file, no badge number, no tax ID, nothing. She asked around. No one had ever worked with a Dennis. And yet the time log showed that same entry day after day. so she flagged it for deletion. But the next night it happened again. Clock in at 3:17 a.m., clock out at 3:28. No security footage showed anyone entering the store at that time. The doors were locked. The store was empty, but the system always registered Dennis R. clocked in. Kendra was unnerved, but assumed it was a system glitch. Until she arrived early one morning to check the break room cameras manually. At 3:17 a.m., something triggered the motion sensor in aisle 14, hardware. The camera feed switched on. It was grainy, flickering, but visible. A man walked into frame, wearing an old Walmart vest. One of the older styles from over a decade ago, navy blue with yellow trim. He stood by the shelves of padlocks, turned, and looked directly into the camera. The feed went black. She froze. The timestamp clearly read 3:18 a.m. No one else was in the store. Security reviewed the footage, but by the time they accessed it, that entire file was corrupted, replaced with a blank gray screen. Still, Kendra couldn't let it go. She dug deeper into archived employee files, even old paper records buried in storage, and she found it. A termination record from 2002. Employee, Dennis R. Position, Night Stalker. Status, deceased. The notes were vague, but the termination date was due to off-site death. A newspaper clipping stored in the folder gave more detail. Dennis had been found dead in his apartment, apparently of a heart attack, after missing his shift at that very Walmart. Only, the timestamp on the police report showed something odd. Time of death, 3:28 a.m. From then on, strange things started happening. One night, a new hire reported hearing whispers in aisle 14, a male voice repeating, "Clock in, get it done, clock out." Another worker quit after encountering a man in an old vest standing silently at the end of the hardware aisle. When she turned to speak to him, he walked into the wall. Not behind a shelf, into the wall. And vanished. Kendra started avoiding the store at night. But she continued checking the system remotely. Every night without fail. Dennis R. is clocked in at 3:17 a.m., clocked out at 3:28 a.m. Corporate eventually replaced the system. New software. Full reset. But the IT tech who installed it later told Kendra that something odd happened during the reboot. Just before the system shut down, one final punch-in record appeared, despite no one having access. Dennis R. punches a final shift, 3:17 a.m. And then, nothing. The system reset. The name was gone, but some night workers still refused to walk down aisle 14 between 3 and 3:30 a.m., and on especially quiet nights. They say you can still hear it. Clock in, get it done, clock out. In 2017, a new Walmart opened on the outskirts of Missoula, Montana, a relatively quiet town where nothing much happened. But within months, the store became infamous, not for customer complaints or low sales, but for what employees whispered about behind locked break room doors. It started when Emily Carter, a 22-year-old overnight associate, was assigned to clean and organize the overflow stockroom at the back of the building. It was a massive, underlit space filled with surplus items, mostly seasonal decor, extra shelving, and unopened pallets. But tucked in the far left corner behind a stack of boxed camping chairs, Emily found something that didn't belong there. A crib, not in packaging, not boxed, just sitting there, fully assembled. Dusty, old-fashioned, hand-painted with pale green floral vines, not like anything Walmart sold. Inside the crib was a single blanket folded neatly, and underneath that, a tiny pair of shoes. Emily asked her supervisor if it was a prop or a return. He looked confused. "There's no reason for a crib to be back there," he said, "especially not assembled." So they moved it. The next night, it was back. Same corner, same blanket, same shoes. They reviewed the CCTV footage from the previous shift. No one had entered the overflow room between 1 and 6 a.m., and yet there it was. Emily was freaked out but intrigued. She decided to ask Marcus, one of the older janitors, if he'd seen anything strange in the building before. His face went pale. He told her that before Walmart, the land had been home to a small state-run children's clinic, shut down decades ago after multiple reports of abuse and a suspicious fire that destroyed half the structure. Most of the rubble had been cleared to build the supercenter, but Marcus said there were tunnels and foundations beneath the property that were never removed. And rumor had it, one of the children had vanished during the fire, never found. They say she was only 2, he whispered, had a crib just like that. Over the next few weeks, Emily and other staff began reporting cold spots in the overflow room. Boxes fell without warning. The lights flickered only in that section. One night, an assistant manager named Deshaun heard a soft lullaby coming from behind the pallets. He followed it, phone light shaking in his hand, and found the crib again. Except this time the shoes were gone. Instead, on the folded blanket was a baby monitor, still turned on. Static hummed from the speaker, and beneath it, scribbled in childish handwriting on the metal crib rail, "She's not asleep." Deshaun quit the next day. Emily tried to stay, but things only got worse. On her final shift, she went in to clock out and saw a printout someone had left on the break room table. It was a schedule for new hires. At the bottom, under Nursery Stock Associate, was a name handwritten in red pen. Emily Carter. Start time 2 Anbari. Location, Overflow Nursery Room. She ran, never looked back. That Walmart still operates today. Management denies any reports, and that part of the stockroom has since been locked off for safety concerns. But ask the night shift and they'll tell you. If you ever hear a lullaby behind the walls, or find a baby shoe where it doesn't belong, don't go looking for the crib, because something down there never left, and it's still waiting to be rocked back to sleep. Back in 2014, a Walmart in Amarillo, Texas, quietly removed a decorative wall mirror that had been installed behind the customer service desk for over a year. There was no announcement, no explanation. But employees still talk about what led up to it, and why they'll never look into two-way mirrors the same way again. It started when Haley Reyes, a customer service associate, noticed something strange. While helping customers return items, she'd occasionally catch a flicker of movement in the mirror behind her, a shadow darting across, or the faint outline of a person who wasn't really there. She brushed it off at first. Her shifts were long, and the fluorescent lighting always gave her headaches. But the strange reflections became more frequent. People standing behind her that weren't there. Faces that didn't match the customers in front of her. And sometimes, when the desk was completely empty, she'd still see someone, just over her shoulder. One night, just before closing, she saw something she couldn't explain. A man in a gray hoodie appeared in the reflection, standing directly behind her. She turned instantly, no one was there. But on the counter, right where the man would have been standing, lay a set of car keys. She hadn't placed them there. No one had. Security was called, and they reviewed the footage. Nothing on the video, no customer, no keys visible until the moment Haley turned around. Things escalated. Another associate claimed she saw her own reflection blink, even though she hadn't. Others swore the mirror was showing parts of the store that weren't visible from that angle, like a live feed from a different building. A night manager even tried covering the mirror with a sheet for a few nights. The next morning, the sheet was always folded and placed on the floor, neatly like it had never been used. Haley decided to dig deeper. She searched the vendor code printed on the back of the mirror. It didn't link to any known Walmart supplier. In fact, the serial number led her to a discontinued product line from a private security firm that had gone out of business in 2008. The model was labeled Spectral Observation 2W73M. Translation: Two-Way Mirror Model 73, Experimental. The paperwork suggested it wasn't just decorative, it was surveillance-grade glass, which meant it might have been one way, and someone at some point could have been watching them from the other side. Haley demanded answers from upper management. They told her to stop asking questions and focus on her duties. That same week, a small door was discovered behind the wall during unrelated renovations in the back hallway. It had been sealed and painted over, completely hidden. When maintenance finally opened it, they found a narrow crawl space. Inside, a stool, cigarette butts, a stack of empty water bottles, and a hole carved directly behind the mirror. Someone had been sitting there watching. No one ever determined for how long or why. The next morning, the mirror was removed. Haley quit the following day. And although the crawl space was sealed and drywalled, night shift workers still report something strange about that section of the store. Customers sometimes complain that they feel like they're being watched, even when the desk is empty. And on very rare occasions, the new mirror, now just a basic wall panel, seems to fog up slightly around 11 p.m. Just enough to leave a faint outline of a face, even when no one's standing there. Most Walmart locations phased out their layaway rooms years ago, but one store in Columbus, Ohio, kept theirs operational longer than most, hidden behind a sliding metal door near the back of the electronics department. It wasn't public-facing anymore. Only staff had access, and after 9 p.m. it stayed locked. But former employee Daniel Murray, who worked the graveyard shift in 2016, says that door used to unlock itself every single night. At first, he assumed it was a faulty latch. He'd shut it at the start of his shift, only to find it wide open by midnight. So he reported it. Maintenance checked it out, replaced the locking mechanism, and even installed a new door handle. Didn't help. The next night, it slid open again. This time, Daniel stood at the edge of the hallway and just watched. He didn't see anyone, no movement, but he heard something. A metal scraping sound, like a chain being dragged slowly across a concrete floor, coming from inside the layaway room. The manager brushed it off. "It's just old shelving shifting," he said. But Daniel knew better. He started documenting it, even recorded a video. In one clip, the door clearly opens by itself. There's no draft, no one near it. And behind the door, a shadow crosses the doorway, tall, human-shaped. Gone in a blink. A few nights later, Daniel decided to investigate. He waited until the door opened on its own, then walked inside. The layaway room was dusty and disorganized. Old labels, broken shelves, forgotten items that had never been picked up. And in the back corner, a single folding chair, facing the wall, with a black Walmart vest draped over the seat. Daniel slowly approached. The chair was empty. But on the ground beside it was a name tag. Gerald. He brought it to the manager the next day, expecting them to joke about it. But instead, the manager went pale. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "Layaway room," Daniel replied. The manager took a deep breath. "Gerald was a stalker here in 2004, he said. He died in the store. Apparently, Gerald had been working late one night and suffered a seizure. He collapsed in the layaway room, where he'd been organizing forgotten merchandise. He was found the next morning, still sitting in the chair. After that, staff said they'd hear noises coming from that room. Chains, footsteps, a low humming. But they never told corporate. Instead, they left the chair alone, and over time the room was simply abandoned, until Daniel found it. From that night on, the disturbances escalated. Inventory would vanish from carts and reappear in the layaway room. Items would fall from shelves without reason. Once, Daniel walked past the door and found the name tag placed back inside, hung neatly on a hook that hadn't been there before. Then one night at exactly 2:17 a.m., he heard something different. A voice, low, gravelly, right behind him. This was my aisle. Daniel spun around, but no one was there. He ran, and when he looked back, the door was slowly sliding shut on its own. He quit the following week, and while the store never officially acknowledged anything, that layaway room was sealed off with drywall shortly after. Customers never noticed, but the staff knew. And they say sometimes during inventory audits that name tag still shows up. Filed under unassigned. Room. Layaway. Time scanned. 2:17 a.m. You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the FearBound family.